a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expounding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this episode, guys, we have the absolutely amazing Amanda Raes comes by. Now, she is a psychedelic integration coach, as well as many other things. So this is a phenomenal episode. She talks about her kicking her addiction of heroin after 8 years with Ibogaine, and then now she helps folks after psychedelic experiences integrate those experiences, which is a very important part of the process that not a lot of people are doing. So it's a very interesting niche that she's got, and I think it's very necessary. Also, she's just badass. She talks about her Kundalini awakening, and like I said, guys, you're just absolutely going to love this. So all the ways, of course, guys, to find her down in the show notes. Make sure you check that out. While you're down there checking out Amanda, go ahead and check out our affiliate links as well. So Food Forest Abundance, get your freedom from fear on. If you'd like to start your own podcast, I host through Libsyn, so that's the link down there. You get 2 months free with that bad boy. Highly recommend it if you feel called to start something like that. Also, if you're going to buy any damn thing at all on Amazon, go ahead and run it through the show's link. It helps the show. Folks need to know that there are people out there who want to help with any type of spiritual time slips. There's so many things that people encounter out in the world that they can't explain, and not a lot of people have a resource to go to. So check out Opus. Opus is, of course, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, linked down in the show notes, guys. If you feel called to do that, absolutely wonderful resource. Of course, Lester Velez, our good friend here, runs that damn thing, and he is just wonderful at it. So check that thing out for sure, as well as down there it would be our website. So check out the website as well. It's got links to everything, as well as replays of lives, Too Hot for YouTube, merch, all that good stuff. So, okay, guys. That was a lot. But anyway, now that we've gotten through that, let's get to this incredible conversation with Amanda Raes.
Get it all out.
It is a beautiful day out here. We are hanging out with Amanda Raes. How are you doing today, Amanda?
I am doing so well. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Just definitely, I said, soaking in all of this incredible energy that's hitting the planet right now, and excited to share it with you.
My God, it's been intense, right? And you and I were kind of talking about it a little bit before we got going here, but it's been interesting, definitely leveling up. What are your interpretations of the energy?
So it's so interesting to see how it affects people so differently. I feel like we talked about earlier, it's bringing up a lot of lessons and stuff. But I feel like for those of us who have maybe been able to switch our perspective of what that stuff all means and can catalyze and brings forth into our lives, as much as there's a lot of challenges, I feel like happening for everybody really on the planet, I think we're all coming more into a space where that manifestation or that clearing is happening faster. So rather than having to stay stuck in these challenges for a while, it's like we're leveling up, like you said, like getting better and better at integrating them and perceiving them differently to be able to use them as like tools, to expand. So I feel like it's, coming from both ends of the spectrum, everything is in balance, always. And so as these intense solar energies are coming in from our sun, we're getting also like the grounding energies to balance that out. So, and then it's just like that process of osmosis of balancing that internally.
You nailed it with that. And what's interesting too about this is that, yes, the balance seems to be occurring, and it seems to be more divisive than ever. And this is kind of what I think that they talk about when they talk about that 3D, 5D split thing, is that it's going to get more intently divided vibrationally. Is that kind of where you're reading it as well?
Totally. I know what you mean. Yeah. Where it's like the way that I was shown it too was like, like these two dimensions always existed within one another, but like you said, because of how intense they're getting and our ability to just see and perceive, we're not actually dividing, but we are noticing the division or the difference more. You know what I mean? Like we're actually coming closer together, which is, I think, what is making it so energetically, at least, these two dimensions, if you will, are sitting on top of each other, like leather and lace, just getting sewn together. And like I said, they always existed, but now our ability to perceive them. And it's so interesting. We kind of mentioned a little bit earlier about like literally living in our like different universes. We're not all in the same place as much as they are coinciding on top of one another. And there's been so many crazy experiences that I've had that has like shown me that right in front of my face. Like you can't ignore this or deny this. And so, yeah, I think that's a lot of what like the awakening process is all about is seeing how malleable our reality is and that we do live in separate little universes.
Consensus reality. I've talked about this. You nailed it. This is definitely something that we talk about here, and it becomes more interesting and more evident. But yeah, it seems like the veil here, if you want to call it that, the illusory boundary is kind of thinning quite a bit, and it's fascinating. And it seems like people who, I'm just going to say, that are open-minded to the direction that we are, where we're at least open enough to look at it, we're having a challenging time, but because it's so intense and it's like, oh, this like now's our time. We're like ready for it. But the people who are in the lower vibrational states, let's just say that for the sake of the term, and then also just kind of very, I'll say, wooed by the matrix, those folks are having a really tough time with this. It's looking like utter chaos, like everything's falling apart. And maybe we can see that everything's falling apart, air quotes for the audio only listeners, but it seems like it's really, that's how things need to occur to reassemble in the best way possible.
Totally. Yeah, it's definitely, it makes me a lot more compassionate for the people who are, like you said, really wooed by the matrix, because I can imagine for sure, what it would feel like if I did pay attention to all this and I let all of this affect my reality, the state of fear and hopelessness that I would feel. And so, and it made me so grateful to have such a different experience my whole life. I can honestly say, and I thought about it, a lot. I don't know if there was a time where I was ever asleep. I think I was just unaware of what was happening until I was able to give it words later on in my life, which had been, the last 8 years or so. And it was terrifying and it was lonely. And, and it caused me, I was very suicidal. I was, it led me to addiction. And I always struggled with trying to understand, like, am I real or am I not real? And they're like, I always felt like I was on like the other side of this mirror. And like, so, while all of this chaos happened, especially like, beginning like 2020, especially, made me be like, okay, this is scary stuff to talk about, but there's got to be other people that are experiencing the same thing. I'd been practicing spirituality and doing kind of my own thing, for a while at that point, but that's what really made me be like, okay, I've got some stuff to share, and I don't care if only one person resonates to it. Like if they're going to be able to know that like they're not alone or losing their mind either, then like worth it.
That is exactly what's been going on. And the metaphor that I will use at this time would be like crocheting. Okay. For like if I were to tell people, hey, I crochet, generally in like I said, matrix, those wooed by the matrix, it's kind of a stigma, right? It's one of those things that's a little, not characteristic of a male. Okay. But totally, what it feels like is the analogy that I would use in this whole waking up thing is that everyone's been crocheting this entire time, but yes, no one was telling each other about it. And finally somebody came out and said, check out this blanket I made, it's super dope. And now everybody's showing each other their projects. It's like, oh, you've been working on this too? Oh, you've been working on yourself too? You've been doing the shadow work? You quit drinking? You're doing all these improvements thing for yourself, and you've been doing it in the back. But now it's a community of people who are out there saying, you know what, we're all doing this, let's roll with it. And it's way more reinforcing for those that maybe weren't crocheting, to stick with the metaphor, that they were interested in it, but they never thought that they could be somebody who could venture down that road.
Totally.
So it's just an odd thing energetically, but I absolutely love it. And I'm right there with you. We talk a lot on the show about how the shift is happening and what that entails and what we're kind of seeing, and it's affecting all of us, which is wonderful. Some of us are very, very excited about it. And for some folks, it's very, very scary. And you help with this. So I'd like to talk about your psychedelic integration coaching, your Harmony I Am. So tell us how you help people embrace lasting change and a balanced life.
Absolutely. Okay. So this is, so my passion, especially following my experience. So I was addicted to heroin for 8 years, but that is the last symptom to manifest of what I previously discussed about feeling like I lived on the other side of this mirror, feeling really alone, not understanding what was happening to me. So heroin was something that when I found it made all of the craziness kind of cease. It also was like this sense of safety that I had not ever felt. And so I can understand and really just through my experience, see essentially with addicts, just like angels with their wings bound and who have been told that things that they are going through or just being traumatized or neglected or just misunderstood. And on the same note, when you take away any sort of substance from that, looking at how we all have certain addictions or attachments, I feel very blessed that mine showed up in a way that I could not ignore long. I couldn't blame other people for long. I had no choice but to be like, this is me. How am I what am I going to do to save myself? Where a lot of people who are more attached to things that are socially acceptable, really just won't necessarily take that time to look at themselves because it's acceptable, right? So that being said, my path to recovery was very untraditional. I used a plant medicine called Ibogaine. And I have also used and sat in medicine circles since then, but that was really the catalyst. And the biggest thing is after my experience, I was very fortunate that it helped me to trust this voice, like I said, that had been guiding me that I would push away. But for the most part, after my experience, and for most Ibogaine experiences thus far, they give you the medicine and they serve you the medicine and they do not teach you how to integrate this medicine into your life. I find this to be the case with many plant medicines, ayahuasca ceremonies, sandpaper, like DMT, whatever the ceremony is, there's so many people that will just deliver the medicine and then you are left to figure out what to do with it, which is why I think we've all come in contact with some people who are like, I've done ayahuasca this many times and yada, 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 but they're still judging everybody and everything. So I thought initially I was going to feel called to serve medicine, but as time went on, after my experience, not having anywhere to turn, I had nobody to talk to. And I was not only, a heroin addict for 8 years. They said, this is a lifetime of stuff. And now I'm supposed to just be somebody different, it's essentially a self-administered ego death, like you lose your identity entirely. And so for me, I struggled so much in the beginning, valuable time after this medicine, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And I would say it was probably about 3 months after my experience, wildly enough, I watched a documentary called The Hidden Teachings of Jesus Christ. And I, at the time, considered myself to be a disciple of Christ. He's like my favorite teacher. That's my buddy. That's my homeboy. But I didn't really resonate with Christianity. And so the little documentary thing, it was like truth was spoken to me for the first time. Some light went on. It was all essentially how the Bible, it breaks down the metaphors into interpreting it into meditation and yada, yada. And it was like I said, something woke up inside of me that was like, this is truth. I know this, I know this from before. And really started to get into meditation was kind of the first step. And learned all of these different techniques throughout the last 8 years. Some of them that I practice often and are really like work for me, and others that I knew I was just learning to be able to teach other people. So essentially what I created is currently right now it's virtual coaching. The goal is to eventually one day have an actual space that is specifically created for people to come and integrate these crazy experiences into their lives. So I use a couple of different techniques and method. It's very personal, you know, and that's where I think current addiction and recovery treatment, not even just even mental health treatment, is so one size fits all. Like this is the most. There's that medical book that everybody, I forget. It's that the master medical book, whatever that, like the CM5 or the something like that. But they all just go based on like this is the criteria, and it just can't work like that. It's such a personal experience. So there's certain things like meditation and breathing, of course, that are, you know, to me, I think crucial for anybody. And when I say meditation, I use that really loosely in the terms of like how you meditate is going to be different than how I meditate. Some people meditate at the gym. Some people meditate where they're fishing or, you know, going for like, so it's not always just, you know, sitting there and doing that, as much as I love like transcendental meditation too. But I really just try to work with the people after the experience to try to figure out, essentially the biggest thing is how to listen to their intuition. What are they supposed to be listening to? We all, you know, I really like to use human design for this to try to get a better idea of how this specific person's blueprint is meant to function, and trying to really just help them, like I said, the best I can to bring this medicine and this new awarenesses into their physical reality and body, because knowledge is a rumor until your body knows it, you know? So, so like I said, that's essentially how I go about doing that. And then I do, you know, I'm a medium and a channel, and I was doing that for a while. But I recognize that I like to use my specific, you know, extra senses and sixth senses to help guide people to opening up to their sixth senses, versus I don't want to be anybody's guru. I like we are teammates. We're teammates, you know? And so I was starting to not like how that felt, because people would come to me and they'd kind of treat me like I was in some space that they're not in yet. And, you know, and I see a lot of people these days who are very addicted to a psychic telling them how, you know, what to listen to, who they can trust, whatever the thing is. And so it's been a really cool experience the last year, really fine tuning and specifically setting my focus on, you know, psychedelic integration. Also Kundalini integration. I do have some people who I, you know, work with who have also had a Kundalini experience, which is, I think I've got 2 people that I've ever met that like had as intensive an experience as I did. So we kind of are teammates on that too, working together to try to figure out how to integrate this madness, you know, which will happen over periods of time. But yeah.
Just remarkable. Something that you said to the Christ consciousness thing. I mean, that's what he was talking about. You will be more powerful than I ever am. And so you've nailed this with this. And I love that you have that humility and understanding, because that shows that you're really out to help people, which is awesome.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm curious about what brought you to Ibogaine, but also do you mind just explaining what that is for the audience?
Totally. Yeah. Fair question. So much so. Okay. So first, so Ibogaine is a shrub. It's found in West Africa. It has been used in African tribes and cultures as a rite of passage, as well as a healer plant. But I did get to meet a really beautiful soul whose tribe used it as a rite of passage. And it's so interesting how it affected him versus how it affects you know, addicts. So for him, they were dancing around the fire and having a good time. Now for people, especially in Western culture, in general, who are experiencing mental health addiction, it is specifically known for because of its ability to help you overcome withdrawal in that 24-hour period of time. So rather than experiencing withdrawal over a period of time or having to take maintenance medicine, essentially, and you can feel it, this medicine it just kind of morphs your cells in a way that literally eliminates the withdrawal process. But it is very similar, I would say, if you want to compare it to anything, would be ayahuasca. However, I've never really experienced a medicine that's quite like this because everything is very internal. It is definitely used on an energetic and spiritual level to help you face traumas, be it in this life or past lives, really clearing your root and sacral, which are the things that tend to be in the driver's seat until we become aware of them and are in contact with them and make a lot of our decisions. So Ibogaine is really helpful for anybody, honestly, who is open, who just knows that there's more to life or doesn't feel like they're in the driver's seat, and doesn't know necessarily what to do next. Like I said, I will call it like kind of like a self-induced ego death. But essentially, so there is Iboga, which is the root. Now, Ibogaine is a synthesized, more powerful version of it, right? It is highly illegal in the US. And I do believe that's because of its ability to heal a multitude of diseases. I mean, even physical symptoms. I've had somebody that I coach that was only addicted to opiates because of chronic pain, and when she went to go do Ibogaine, she left not only not addicted to opiates, but not in pain anymore. So I really honestly wouldn't put it past this medicine to heal, a lot of different things. So essentially right now there are places all over the world that do use this as a tool to heal. I specifically work with a retreat in Mexico, in Cancun. And then how did I get on? Okay, that's the second question. All right, two-parter. So my journey to Ibogaine, I was very fortunate I had heard about it for years. In my state, there was no way I was ever going to be able to afford anything like that. So, and how do you come to your parents and be like, hi, there's this really powerful psychedelic in Mexico, like, can I go use it? So I knew about it for about 2 years and was definitely in that period of time calling it to myself. I didn't realize I was manifesting at the time, but kept on calling it to me. Somehow my parents ended up hearing about it from a friend. And honestly, they offered it to me. And I will tell you at that point, I said it had been 2 years later. At this point, I was so hopeless. I was like, whatever. Like I honestly, I can't even say it was my last hope. I was doing it because I wanted them to know that if my addiction took me out, I tried everything possible, so, and I had no idea, the changes that were about to take place afterwards. And then how that change would also directly affect my family as a result of them being open to this experience.
Now I'm just curious about this. So what was that like? When you went to go undertake the experience, when you came back, how did things change for you?
Okay. So, and this is the interesting part. And what I try to warn people all of the time about is that you're going to face some stuff, right? Like I said, it was so funny, the difference in the tribe, he's dancing around and having a good time. I was so angry afterwards, even though there's like so many things happening at one time. I was angry because I was like, well, I can't now. Like, and what do I do with that? And my experience was really divine timing in the sense that literally there's usually always people at the treatment centers. And I just happened to go at a time where there was nobody else there. I was terrified of being alone at the time. That was not so, I was wrestling with that. It was a long time ago too. So we couldn't communicate with, people back home as easily. So, it was intense. It stays intense, for as well. It depends on if you got a coach or not, right? Like I definitely help ease that experience. So, but a lot of people that I coach have that similar experience, the day or two afterwards, they're kind of angry and dealing with that. But the first time I knew how much this medicine changed me was flying home a few days later. I was terrified of flying at that point in time, had to knock myself out. And I got on this plane and it was turbulent and I didn't flinch. There was and I was like, oh shit, something happened. And like I said, I struggled for a good 3 months trying to learn what I was supposed to do next, how I was supposed to take all of this information. I knew now that I had served a purpose. I knew now that like it was like I had no fear of death or loss or, all of these things that used to make my decisions for me, essentially, So that was the challenging space, was like, now what do I listen to? But it was really cool watching my family at the same time open up to kind of all this spiritual stuff as they're watching me change and kind of can't deny it. And I mean, we are closer now than I could have ever it's like I'm the one they come to for advice too. And I mean, we're like best friends. It's, so it's like I said, that all I attribute all of that to, that experience with them. And it really helped me to essentially open up to my power. That was the thing that I was so afraid of, right? That was the thing that was scaring me my whole life, is I was witnessing my power, and not understanding what I was witnessing. And so it gave me the opportunity to kind of be more like, all right, what can I really do with this? Like, I'm in a body, like, what, this is crazy. Like, what are the possibilities, rather than having that be a fearful experience.
Yeah. Before, when you said, when you had your experience that you're no longer able to, and then you stop the sentence, what I interpreted from that is that you're no longer able to use your addiction as an excuse for your identity. Is that what you meant by that?
Totally. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, yes, exactly. I was like, that's such a hard thing to put into words. I was like, I'm not going to get the satisfaction from it. I'm not going to be able to run with it. I'm not going to be able to use it as an excuse. I'm not, all of the things that this was, once you know something, you can't not know it. And I was like, oh, that was my go-to, man, to not have to try or, and to be addicted to my anger.
But I love the way that you put it, though, because also, yes, a lot of people say this about like their power, to exactly what you were just saying, is that some people know that they're extremely powerful, but they'll dull it on purpose because they're scared of their own power, and they don't feel that they live in a world that's conducive or reciprocating of that in a positive way.
100%.
And so but it's wonderful now that you've realized that that's, number one, what it was, number two, how to fix it, number three, that you're helping others get out of that. So the next question, I guess, just is how does someone know that plant medicine is the path for their cure to addiction?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I would say one of the biggest things is in how they resonate with traditional recovery. So I'm very clear cognizant, and I just have knowings about things, and I know things that I know, and I can't tell myself that I don't know them. So one of the things that I noticed being in traditional treatment centers was being told about how malfunctioning I am and this disease. And I was like, no, I just don't believe you. And so being told that like this was the only way, and not only that, like there's 5% chance that I'm going to make it anyways. And they drill that into your head at treatment centers. Like, they're like, look to your left, look to your right. Only one of you is going to make it. Like that fear is somehow going to make me believe that I'm the one that's worth saving, That's what
they say to the Navy SEALs when they start. You know what I mean? So it's
totally.
Yeah.
And it was like, so that was like the biggest thing to me is I had this knowing and I had to follow it. And so I know a lot of people that traditional recovery works for them and they are kicking ass and taking names. And I'm like, do it, like get on it. I think the 12 steps are an amazing way to live our lives. And they're definitely, about taking, when people are able to, I think it's kind of like how it gets interpreted a lot of times, kind of like the Bible, like anything, you know what I mean? I think when you go back to the roots, I was very fortunate when I was in traditional recovery to be friends with all the elders. All of the people that I was friends with in recovery had been clean since Bill W was around. And so fortunately, they really helped me to understand that too. Once upon a time, AA and NA used to be about meditation. Like they used to start every meeting and end every meeting with the group meditation. Some meetings were just meditation, but that was a staple, So like I said, I got really lucky in that group of people, but I would definitely say if you don't resonate, and if the thought of living in traditional recovery sounds worse than dying from the disease, then you might want to explore some other options and just know that you have other options, because that's where I was at.
That's a fantastic way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 12 steps are interesting. It was interesting to hear you say that. In my mind, my interpretation of them is that they take your power away and they make you feel like you're very, very small and that you can't help yourself. And
Totally.
perhaps some people need to hear that when they're in the mode of maybe they feel like they can't and they kind of just need the Jesus take the wheel kind of concept, and that's fine. Because perhaps outside of that and after that is where they really gain the information and knowledge and confidence to realize that they are a sovereign being and that they actually, one of those things that was in you the whole time. You had it the whole time.
100%. And I think that, I could not agree more. One of my biggest things I say is like, I don't really go to meetings, but if I were to, I never say, my name is Amanda and I'm an addict. I say, my name is Amanda and I have a desire not to use today. That
right there. It's the constant reaffirmation, because there are people, I was talking to my father-in-law about this the other day. There are people who've quit drinking 30 years ago and they say, I'm an addict, but they're 30 years sober. You haven't been an addict since the last time it mattered. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's interesting to me that
is my
headspace.
biggest problem. My biggest problem is that. And then also, like you said, the giving your power away. Like I said, once upon a time, from what I hear, like I said, from the elders, that's not what it was. Like you said, it was more about humbling. When we're in active addiction, we can be very selfish, and to recognize that there is a power greater than you that could restore you to sanity is like opening up to that faith. But what's happened throughout the years is it has turned into, not only can I make my own decisions, I'm going to give my decisions to my sponsor, who is also an addict, but knows better about what I should be doing than I know, because I'm and I said, and it's just gotten really, they call it microwave recovery, and like I said, it's kind of like how it's all been interpreted wrong, not wrong, just differently. It's been turned into a little more cultive personality of a thing, if you will, which, like I said, is sad, because the basis, the building blocks, the principles, what Bill W. first set out to do, and the purpose of it, about humbling yourself, recognizing your mistakes, but then also the traumas you've been through, sharing that with another human being so that you're not alone, and and it's okay to talk about this, and then being of service, apologizing and taking responsibility for yourself. And then, like I said, again, sharing that with other addicts, like that's such a beautiful thing. But the way that it's just been taken, like most beautiful things, it's gotta have its moment where, we also recognize that when taken too far, it can have the opposite effect.
Completely agree. And I think that also even step programs like this are programs to get people off of substances that they got you addicted to in the first place, because that's how this place works. I think it's interesting that even in that, your recovery is centered around a low vibrational, you have to give your power away. So what's interesting about what you said, and I agree with this, is that their model is for you to turn yourself over to a higher power. Now, what's interesting is by doing that, you hopefully can get to the point to where you realize that you're the higher power that they were talking about the whole time. But they weren't referencing you. They were referencing the fact that you should still feel in this low vibe thing. And so even in your recovery, they hijack you back into the state that they want you to be in anyway, which is this low vibe thing. So It's really cool to see that you recognize this, number one. Number two, you've been through it. So you have this whole hero's journey thing going with this already. You're someone that people can say, why should I listen to you? And you're like, well, here you go. Here's why. Because I've done this shit, I've been there, got the 100%. T-shirt. Yeah. And so I just think what you're doing is wonderful.
Thank you.
Something I am curious about that I'd seen on your media kit for us to talk about that I'm very curious about is the definition of addiction to you. So what's your philosophy of addiction? So I view addiction, I've replaced that word with attachment, like I said, and I believe that essentially, like I said, okay, if we look at the population's addiction to their phones, right, which we can openly use the word addiction when it comes to people's phones, and people would admit and know that they're addicted to their phones. However, that's somehow supposed to be different than my brain, who was once upon a time addicted to heroin, right? And there's differences in addictions too. Obviously, there's physical addiction. And a lot of times I might still use the word addiction when it comes to physical addiction, because there are people who've been prescribed to opiates that don't want
them, aren't trying to escape themselves, but physically become addicted, right? To me, that's what addiction is. But then there's attachment, and that's a mental thing, and the thing that you give your power away to. I believe that we are taught that it is a disease, and a terminal one. A terminal one at that, is because the thing to me, from looking at it from a further perspective, is what separates people who get addicted to, especially like really hardcore drugs versus their cell phones, or maybe equally their cell phones, but is fear. That's that, like, so many people that talk to me that have never done drugs are just curious, like, it's not that they, even think it's gross or whatever. They'd be afraid to get addicted. They'd be afraid to break the law. They'd be afraid, to overdose. I don't know. It's fear of the experience that keeps people from trying new experiences, right? Where I feel like people who end up getting addicted to, especially hardcore drugs, I can, say for myself and people that I work with, we've already been through hell. We've already been through the trauma, been through the stuff. I personally, my first time using heroin was a straight up suicide attempt. I had just been through just a couple awful experiences all on top of each other. I had somebody who offered it to me. In my mind, I was like, this thing's either going to get me high or it's going to kill me. And I'm cool with either one, So, and so that's the thing, is recognizing that there was years of my life where heroin was the only thing keeping me alive. Yes, was it Russian roulette, and I could have died at any time. And it's recognizing that for so many people, what keeps us in this active addiction state is the shame and the stigma. And it just becomes a shame cycle. Whereas if we can recognize that anything in our life, while it's in our life, is serving us. If it wasn't serving you, it wouldn't be in your life. And that shift of perspective right there, making this be an attachment versus something malfunctioning, my genetics, and this, I'm never going to go back to being normal. This is something I have to struggle and wrestle with my whole life, having that mentality keeps people running from it, And so my whole thing with addiction is, we're taught that it's a disease because I think addicts are the most imaginative, creative, sensitive, just psychically gifted beings. And we are really made to feel like all of those things are actually curses and there's something wrong with us. And so our streets and our population are flooded with things, especially like opiates, because I do believe that's all manufactured too, how the opiate epidemic came about, when it came about, all of it, So, and I believe, that's specifically why, because that's what woke me up to my psychic gifts, was getting to the other side of that. And I do just feel like everybody so far, at least that I have worked with, has had very similar experiences once they get to that other side, that they realize that they're just super, super gifted psychics and mediums and healers.
Man, that's such an interesting point you make. That addicts are addicts to dull themselves, not only because their power is so great, but because they live in a world that says that it's horrible and evil and they should feel like a piece of shit for having it or anything like that. That's interesting. So I think you've hit on it there with the root of addiction, because it's just like you said, it's the last symptom. It was something, that could have been brought to your attention in other ways, and probably was. Right. It just wasn't recognized by you. And so you go into that, and it's just kind of like that whole idea that like schizophrenics and mental issues are really sort of like a negative entity attachment, or something like they're dialed to 11, and autism and things. There's just so many misunderstandings. And I think the more that the truth comes out of the veil's thin, like what we're talking about, I think these things get framed in a new light, and they're very, very interesting.
Yes, I totally agree. Same thing with schizophrenia. Yeah, I've had a lot of downloads and experiences with that. I worked with, I do ABA too. I'm just really passionate about working with autistic youth. And I think that there's a correlation there too, of them being in two different dimensions. And so it's really fun to do. But I've had experiences too with, I swear, this girl who's diagnosed autism and schizophrenic would channel just dark. I mean, her voice would change. It would take 5 grown men to get this girl down. And I was like, are you guys not seeing the same thing that I'm seeing? I was like, this is not just schizophrenia.
Yeah, this is not that.
No, that's not happening.
So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think it's different for everybody. I agree with you. So what I have learned, especially having such a darker path, if you will, right? I've got a lot of dark goddess energy. So having that be the case, while I do believe in certain things like entity attachment, and having dark entities with us, I think it's very important for us to recognize that they are here and attached to us to protect us. That they're not coming to take over your body and spread evil. It's like our own self-doubt mechanism too, right? That part of us that self-doubts is the one that has maybe felt like it lost love or been hurt in the past by an action or a thing that you did. So when it sees you doing the thing again, it's going to tell you, don't do that, and make you doubt yourself because it's afraid of not getting love again. Right. And so to me, I see it as kind of like the same thing is, and I know, especially feeling that as I grew up with these gifts, and not being able to express them, there were times that my mom almost had me exercise, like it was like, yeah, but I knew, but that this entity that was with me stepped in when I was being taken advantage of, when I felt too strongly and my poor little sensitive soul was like just about to rip in half. And so when we can honor and recognize the purpose that these entities and these beings are playing for us and with us, then that we're able to let them go. That's when, because we get to say thank you, we get to take our power back and be like, thank you for protecting me. I don't need your protection now. I see it now. I see what you're trying to protect me from. I've got us. I'm going to make sure that stuff doesn't happen to us again. And when we can learn how to work with them in that capacity, we aren't afraid of when we experience it in other people. Then it's no longer, I could face somebody else's demon and just look at them straight in the face and be like, I fucking love you. And watch them just melt away, because that's all they're looking for too. So I do strongly feel like that is what's happening, but I feel like I see it in a way that's not as spiritual warfare-y.
Warfare. I like that.
Yeah.
There was a young lady I had on the show named Serena Faith Masterson, and she wrote a book, I Am Serena. She had over 133 multiple personalities, MK Ultra background, incredible story. But what this makes me think about what we're talking about now is multiple personalities, where you fracture based on traumatic experiences and you compartmentalize these identities to deal with it, basically.
Totally.
And so it's interesting what you said about the spirit possession and how it can be used, because again, back to what you said earlier, if it wouldn't be here unless it was necessary in serving you, until it no longer serves you. And that's when you say, thanks for the help, it's time to bounce. And what's interesting about this too is that it's almost like a guardian that steps into, that appears negative, but it's actually because this individual perhaps has so much to give this place that they're under attack from other things that would be way worse if they were to take over, right? What is one of those things? It's like having a parasite that's good for you, Yeah. It helps you lose weight, all that good stuff. Like some people want a tapeworm, right?
Right.
So it's interesting that these things play such a massive role here, and that it seems, again, and the more that I look into it, things like addiction, things like mental diagnoses, they just seem to be inversions of what's really going on. And it seems like, I don't know, this is getting too conspiritual here, but it seems like the people in power kind of know that, and they kind of hijack it to keep it in this lower vibrational state. But the good news is it's all you anyway, right? And so our whole job is here is to kind of wake ourselves up from ourselves, kind of a thing.
100%. Yeah. And I agree with you. I try so hard not to get caught up in the conspiritualism. I like that you just called that, because there is that aspect of so much of it was manufactured. If you look into the industry of mental health in general and psychiatry, how it was created, when it was created, and the purpose that it served. And I do believe that there are higher beings, not even, higher than just government officials. I'm talking about, the actual beings of the planet, right, that are aware what is truly going on with us, and they don't want us to know, but it is slowly coming out. And I believe a lot of that is honestly, in a lot of ways, I was thinking about that today, in some ways for our own protection. If we were to, and I can tell you even just from my Kundalini experience, have that mindgasm awareness of everything all at one time, it's traumatic as fuck. Like, oh my goodness, I couldn't speak for 6 months. And I think that in so many ways, that's why it's slowly being leaked. And I try to look at it that way versus being kept from me now. Because like you said, it's all me anyways. And this is all just a play and a drama that's playing out. And, so when you can just become like more entertained and interested and curious about what's happening and how other people wake up, what does that look like for you? What was the thing for you? Then it gets like a lot easier to not like, because like, again, like I said, I don't like to play into the spiritual warfare thing. Do I believe that there are beings that, are whose purpose here is to try and distract us, whose purpose here is to play the villain or whatever? Yeah, 100%. But like, that's also their role and purpose. So again, that's all source, that's all God, that's all spirit, and that's all me, especially within my own little reality here.
Could not agree more. What was it that got you to that understanding, or where you feel comfortable saying that so confidently?
Yeah, 100%. I would say that definitely the Kundalini experience that I had showed it all to me. And I feel like in a lot of ways, that is one thing that I always had hoped, right? So like I said, being a medium and gifted and in tune growing up, I tapped into a lot of darkness. Like I have a lot of dark goddess aspects, things that I prophesized were death, things that I like. So I thought I was evil. Like even though I'm literally the most loving, like sensitive, but I was like, I must be evil because this is what I'm experiencing. So I think it's in a way, it was always what I had hoped was the case. And so I think it was my Kundalini experience in general and being able to see it and feel it and experience it from this higher perspective that helped me to know it like in my body, and there was still a process afterwards. Because with that experience, with that energy surging through you, you get faced with traumas and things and cellular memories, right? Internally, it's not just like this bliss experience and now cool, I'm activated and like, I get to like, just, hop in and out of reality. So it's not like that at all. It surges through you and you have to face the things that it cleared in your physical reality. So, so it definitely got like a little scary for a few years. All of that dark stuff had to come to the surface for me to actually acknowledge it and see its purpose and working with me. But that was probably when I was actually able to know it without going back. Does that make without the forgetting part?
100%. It makes complete sense. And I love what you said about things not unlocked yet. We hear this with people who do hypnotic regressions. Like there's some folks that will do a hypnotic regression, but there's a block, there's a barrier there. Also with remote viewers, there's like a barrier that all of them say that they come to a certain time and they can't see beyond that. Now, this is interesting to me. But also it's very interesting because I've said this before, audience, be patient. This is a great example and it just keeps popping back up. So in the movie The Matrix, when Neo goes to see the Oracle, she tells him that he's not the one, even though he is the one, but he needs to hear he's not the one at the time so that he can go be the one.
Yep.
This whole idea of withholding this stuff in a way that it's the most necessary, like you said, if it was a big flood like your Kundalini awakening, which you want to get to, then it does seem like here it's like a video game. And once you reach a certain level, you unlock like this new sword. And now you can run around with this new sword and super dope. And you're like, man, I would have loved to have this sword a few levels back. But really, you needed to earn that sword. And now it's necessary. It wasn't before. It would have made things too easy, all of this good stuff.
Totally.
The more that I look at this place like this, and the more that I see the things around in this way, the more not only does it make such great fucking sense, but it's all perfect. Like, I don't know. There are things that I wish weren't here, or like ways in which that this place presents lessons that we didn't have to learn that way.
Right.
But I'll be damned if like it's perfect, because there is so much crap here, but everyone learns in a different style. Again, I really think it's the way the lessons have to be received are why they present themselves in the way that they do.
Right. 100 million%. And I'm always like, who am I to say? That's the funny thing about everybody and their 2 cents of how to run the world and, what everybody's doing, what all the other officials are. I'm like, listen, who the hell am I to say? Like, I've got some ideas. I know some things I would do differently, but like, I'm also not in that position. I don't know the ins and outs. I know the tip of the iceberg when it comes to any of that stuff.
Yeah. And it's kind of like time travel. It's kind of like if you go do anything, I remember someone talking about the show. I never watched it. The Flash, the show on TV or whatever.
Okay. Right. I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, allegedly, he just kept going back in time and changing things and just screwing everything up. So the entire show is basically him like going through time, screwing things up and then attempting to change and fix them, but screwing them up worse. So it does feel like this. It's like this place has to be like this. Otherwise, it wouldn't be received in the way that it needs to be. It's just interesting. 100%. And again, the more I look at it, the more perfect it is, because I would like, child atrocities and cancer and things like that to be gone. But who knows what kind of purpose they serve, And if time travelers are real and time travel is like a thing and you can go affect things, well, then no one went and killed Hitler. I mean, he must have served some purpose other than, there must have been something way worse. You know what I mean?
100%.
It's odd to wrap your mind around, and it does definitely take a level of cognizance to get there. It's not like first day shit. You know what I mean? And I'll let you know when I figure it out. I find that it's very inviting and way more exciting to view it this way. And that's when, honestly, like a lot of the like why me's and whatevers, they melted away. It was just like, oh, okay, got it. I'm just here to do what I'm here to do.
Yes.
So let's talk about your Kundalini experience. So I'm very curious what you got.
Yes. Yeah, this was a fun one. Because my biggest thing too is I get asked like, how do I do it? How can you do it? And I'm gonna tell you, the biggest thing is not trying. Like it's effortless. So it was, let's see, it happened about 2 years after my Ibogaine experience. So I was about 16 months into a really deep meditation journey. Like it became my new addiction. At the time, I needed to meditate like 4 hours a day. And I was just in blissed out, cloud 9, that pink cloud of spiritual ego that we all like land on at some point. So I was there, I was in it. And I had never, I'm not really much of a researcher. I'm really claircognizant, and there's few people that I kind of like resonate with as far as like teachers, like Matt Kahn would be one of them. Wim Hof is like my hero. But other than that, like all of this stuff was just coming to me from meditations that I was doing. And I was led to start putting on like Kundalini solfeggio frequencies and music that like I was inviting this energy and having no idea what it was. I had no idea. I wasn't led to research it. I'm glad I didn't, because I wouldn't have done it. But so I just like, like I said, I was just inviting this energy in. Honestly, for me, it was the silly twin flame journey thing that really was a big trigger for it. I was very attached to that concept. And I had a friend that I'd known for 10 years invite me to go work at his pot farm in California. And there were so many synchronicities and crazy stuff leading up to it. And so I got there, and yeah, there's all the, between card readings, all these signs that we're twin flames. And so I am just even more just like building and bubbling up this cauldron of just, crazy energy. So what had happened was, to make a long story kind of short, is we were in San Francisco. Now, we took acid the day before. We were not on acid that day. We took acid the day before, and we were given some sort of mission. I don't remember how we were given this mission, but it was about like finding a code, and it was like more like sounds. Okay. And it was like what my soul name was, but it's like, so yeah. So I don't remember how we were like, given this message, whatever, but we're like kids playing, just inner children, full force. We run around San Francisco, not thinking much of it, and went back to tell our friend, like, oh, we found out like, Amanda's spirit name, it's like this code. And he was like, oh, what is it? And then my partner at the time, well, the twin flame one, said this code, and whether or not this was it or not, I don't know. But all of a sudden, for me, it came up from my crown and went down, but they met each other. But it started with this liquid feeling light just pouring over me. And I had the most intense orgasm that I can only call an orgasm because it's the only like relatable thing within our reality. That was, I could feel it outside of my body though too. And everything was like my whole, and I was just bawling. And it was like the first time where I got to see everything come together. And it was like I was seeing everything past, present, and future all at one time. And I'm just bawling and bawling. And the guy that I thought was my twin flame at the time started to get very jealous feeling and angry. And that was when I immediately understood that he was not my twin flame. And we definitely have a karmic soul bond and connection, like love him for all the purposes that he served. But essentially what happened in that moment was the most intense feeling of being alone, right? Because in reality, this will always be my reality. There's always that sense of aloneness because you're one, you're also multiple, but you're one. So that was the necessary experience I needed to accept my own vastness and aloneness, but wholly visceral experience. When I recognized that he was not my twin flame, all of this energy surging through me stopped. And it felt like it was like being sucked out of me like a vacuum. And I was like screaming and shriveling up on the floor. And that's when he finally recognized, like, okay, something is going on here. And I don't remember much because I left my body, but from what I know, so like he picked me up in my reality. And this is like what we talked about, two different realities happening at the same time. In my reality, he had to kill me. And he did that by suffocating me with a crystal. He like replaced my whole chakra system with crystals. First, it was like he was having like open heart surgery. So he replaced all my chakras with crystals. And he looked me in the eye and he said, I'm now activating your third eye. And he was like, this is the ascension. Amanda's going first. She will see you on the other side. And I was in that moment actually so grateful that he was able to kill me. I was in full surrender. And I had this voice in my head being like, it's okay. You just have to let go. And in my mind, in doing so, I was saving everybody that I loved. It was like this, like you're taking them with you kind of an experience. And so I closed my eyes and I let go. And that's when I left my body and I was out for, I want to say like minimum like 7 minutes. I don't know. I was not breathing and, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. I've got everybody, I guess, in the room was super traumatized. I still feel so bad about that. I don't feel bad, but oh my gosh. So all of a sudden I essentially come back into my body. And I was not in control of my body as I was re-uploading essentially. So what had happened was I started speaking in tongues, or what we know as light language, multiple different languages. So they were different. We could call them cultures or star races, but I was speaking in all these different languages, and I was moving faster than humanly possible. Apparently, apparently, to try to ground me, he gave me a beat that was like the size of a friggin' giant baseball that I ate in 2 seconds. So just like he's like, it didn't even make sense. And I was just dancing. Like my body just wanted to dance. That's all. And so, it was a very visceral experience of what we consider free will to be, like, and what actually we have control over, don't have control over. So essentially, I came back into my body. It was like I got re-uploaded, but I spent a few days living in Golden Gate Park, which is a whole nother story of how we get to that point. And essentially, it was almost like the universe was putting me through some sort of school where I was like learning how to manifest instantly and how my emotions and words went in alignment, and they all have to be in alignment to manifest. And there was this whole I mean, I was like meeting beings that it was like the whole city was playing along with it, and it kept transforming. It was wild. So essentially, the way that it really then like kind of culminated was my mom and my uncle flew out to San Francisco because, of course, at that point in time, 2 years after the Ibogaine, they think if I'm like out on the streets and they can't get a hold of me, I'm doing drugs, which I understand for them, you know. So they flew out to San Francisco, miraculously found me. Like, I was sitting outside of a Whole Foods, and my mom had just been to this Whole Foods. It was like, if you see this girl, she likes great kombucha. So I was sitting outside this Whole Foods and I was crying because it was the first time I was told no after instantly manifesting for days. And it was like the first time being told no as a child. I was told that I couldn't, so I started like, you know, just bawling. And all of a sudden my partner at the time did this, just and went like this, or like, it's like hard to see, but like a Dragon Ball Z ball, and went like that to my heart. And when he did that, I fell back into my mom's arms. And so all of a sudden my mom is looking up at me, and I am, like I said, in a different reality. I had no idea that other people aren't there with me. So she's like, I'm going to take you home. And we were having this whole thing about how home was Mount Shasta, and I had to go to Mount Shasta to like ground the energy, yada, yada. So she's like, I'm taking you home. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, this is it. Like, we're going to go to Mount Shasta. And all of a sudden I'm in the back of this car with them, and I realized they're like taking me home to Wisconsin, and they didn't understand what happened. And so all of a sudden that aloneness set in again, right? Where I was like, oh my God, I am the only one in this experience. And so in the back of the car, I did the same thing like I did when I was coming back to I'm flopping around and I'm speaking in tongues, and I can't control my body. And my mom and my uncle were about to take me to a hospital, and suddenly my mom's phone stopped. And it's never done this again, but it started to translate what I was saying. And it said, love, 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 listen to this song. And so my mom stopped, because fortunately, like I said, I'm very close with my mom. So she's known no matter how crazy or whatever it is that I'm experiencing, she knows about it. So when she got that, she was like, there's something spiritual going. And she's like, I could feel it the whole time too. There was something else going on. So yeah, it was a few day experience really. From what I understand, and I'm learning about it, it's a, 15 to 25 year process of integration, right? It's a continual evolution and process. Like I said, I was scared to speak for 6 months afterwards, because I was shown how to manifest in the thoughts of the words and the motion being all in alignment. And so, I said it was a lot to integrate, and I'm still slowly integrating. Definitely feel like I'm more in a symbiotic relationship with this energy that once dragged me through life. We're partners. I understand the term co-creating now. As much as we're co-creating with one another, first you have to learn how to co-create with yourself, right? And then maybe you'll get a divine mirror to co-create a life with. And then from there, we learn how to co-create with the rest of society. And so, so that was my process. It's a big one.
Shit. That was incredible. Thank you so much for telling us that. That was amazing. I mean, how intense. Now, your mom seemed to kind of be, like you said, no matter what happened. Now, you said that you've been clairaudient, clairvoyant, a medium of sorts, but since you were a child. So did she pick up and perhaps protect you? Did she realize that you had something else going on?
Yes. So my mom has always been my protector. As much as I did not grow up in a Christian home, right? My mom did. When she had me out of wedlock, we were kicked out of the church. So that was like the separation, of church. But she definitely had Christian beliefs. And so that did create somewhat of she knew I was very gifted and sensitive, but when it would manifest in darker protective ways, right, I was possessed, So that's the role it took on prior to the Ibogaine. After the Ibogaine, and once I understood what was happening, I was given the ability to talk about it more in a way that because I knew what was happening then, and so, and it's one of those things, is my mom too, being as close as we are, when I speak truth or say truth to her, she knows it. Doesn't matter how crazy it is. Like when I told her that I believe that my soul is originally from a different star system and and I'm not from here, she's like, that's the truest thing I've ever, that makes perfect sense. Like, so yeah, she's like, yep, does it, yep. No problems there. So, so I think our spiritual evolution has definitely been a process together where we've grown in that way by sharing with one another.
What's your grandmother like on her mom?
On her side,
yeah.
My grandma is a baby soul. I get, my grandparents are the most loving and terrified people. Like, sweetest. Like my grandma, especially right when I was doing drugs, never ever judgment. She'd sit down and be like, all right, now tell me, what is ecstasy like? Like, she's so curious. I want to microdose them so bad before they ever pass away. Cause I just want to be like, do you want to live before you die? Because they're the sweetest. I really believe that they are newer souls to this system, they're just very scared of everything, but they've got such pure hearts, and they've got this really sweet, they call each other Noah and Allie from The Notebook, their little romance between my grandparents. She's very self-conscious, very, very self-conscious and insecure, and she's just this little tater tot of a woman. And so my mom always kind of felt like she had to be the mom, which is funny because I was like Kim, just so you know, I felt like I always had to be the mom. So it's just this interesting cycle with us.
Well, it is interesting because it feels like you kind of get to a certain point in your life, I guess, to where, yes, you needed them to like wipe your poopy butt and like feed you and make sure that you didn't die. You know what I mean? But at a certain point, it does kind of seem like that they gave you such a good head start, which is what they want to give you, a better life than they have, that you reach some understandings that then you can teach them. And it's very interesting, this whole like process, right? So the reason I was asking is because sometimes spiritual gifts like this can run in families. And if it doesn't come from your mother's side, it would basically like skip a generation and do that. Did you have anything like that? Did she have a sister or anything like that?
So I definitely feel like what's interesting is I feel like I get it from my dad's mother now. And we had a very interesting relationship growing up. I was my mom's protector, right? And she, my dad being a mama's boy, she was very protective of my dad and kind of, would butt heads with my mom, and I'd get very protective of my mom. And it's so funny because after my grandma Susie passed away, we have a closer relationship now than we ever had when she was living. And I actually live in her house now. And my grandma Arnold too, her mother always said that she talked to angels, and people used to always think that she, was okay, grandma, but she'd always be like, well, I was just having tea with the angels. And my grandma Susie was super free spirited and traveled. I mean, when her and my grandpa retired, rather than living in Florida with him, she stayed here in Wisconsin and traveled all over the country and just did her own thing. So it's so crazy because, like I said, in life, that's always how you know the people that you butt heads with the most. There's something there happening. And that was my relationship with my dad too. My dad is very, very gifted in different ways that he probably doesn't even recognize. And like I said, I definitely feel like my grandma on my mom's side and my mom, they're all very sensitive. They're all very sensitive. And I think that they block a lot of their gifts. My mom, it's been beautiful to watch her open up to hers and like, just open to really like letting go of all of the stress, and just that she's just so open to learning from me, which is the coolest, because to be recognized as a child, as the teacher, was the greatest gift my parents freaking gave me. I was told by modern psychology that was wrong. I remember, going to therapists when I'm a teenager, being like, oh, my parents treat me like I'm the adult that I am. Right. And they were like, no, that's not okay. And I was like, well, okay, then that's not okay. Now I have a reason to be angry at you,
Exactly. This just seems like more of that inversion crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That no, you couldn't possibly get to a point in your life to where you're presented with new understandings that your parents never were, or now they're at a time to where they could receive new information like that, but you couldn't possibly deliver that to them due to your role. Ridiculous.
Yes,
This is where like
exactly it. Yeah.
the nonsense of the Matrix just gets old with me, and I see it constantly. I'm like, and bullshit. You know, you get spotted real quick.
Right.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think we're gonna call it on this. I just have so many things that I want to talk to you about. Definitely off air, so just hang on. But also, this was perfect. So we will definitely be having you back on. We're starting to do panel stuff, and you and I have a lot to talk about. So
awesome, can't wait.
I will be linking, of course, your Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, your website, everything in the show notes, guys. So take a look down there and go check her out. You are fascinating. And like I said, you and I still have a lot of stuff. And I think that you really have a very interesting thing, a way that you help people, which is integrating post-psychedelic experience. And I think that this is a very interesting thing that's very necessary. You remind me kind of Blair McDaniel, how she helps people cope with religious traumas. And so it's a very specific thing, but it's very necessary. And I'm grateful that you're out there doing this for everyone. So for all of us, right? Because we're all the same. So, Amanda Rae, we will have to catch up with you another time, but thank you so much. This is so cool.
Thank you so much. I like just being able to have such open conversations. It's just such a gift. And to be able to feel, too, how secure I feel being able to talk about these things now. So I really appreciate you and getting the message out there, because it is what I do is a niche, you know, but I think it's so important for people to know that these medicines can change your life, but they need to be integrated. There's work that needs to happen afterwards. Nothing is going to be a quick fix or a cure-all. So
could not agree more. I think I'm going to go ahead and coin the term necessary. Does that work?
Yeah, there you go. Necessary. Oh my gosh, it's perfect. That's exactly what it is.
You can have it.
Thank you.
Pass that around. You
That's
have a very necessary thing. It's fun to say too, phonetically.
Yes, absolutely. That's perfect.
Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
What a remarkable conversation from a truly remarkable young woman. My God. So all the ways to find Amanda, guys, located down in the show notes. Make sure that you go check out her website, Harmony I Am, and she does phenomenal videos on TikTok for sure. All of it linked in the show notes. Check it out. While you're down there, you may as well check out our affiliate links as well. So Food Forest Abundance, Get Your Freedom from Fear on Jim Gale's project, linked down there. Unbelievably proud to be a part of that. Libsyn, if you guys are wanting to host your own podcast, you get 2 months free. Libsyn 2, I host through. Highly recommend them. I've been using them this whole time, using them currently. Could not recommend them more, guys. So if you're also going to buy any damn thing at all on Amazon, go ahead and run it through the show's link. It helps the show. For something you were going to do anyway, right? Ideologically. So also, if you would like to expand your experience with us here on the show, you can do so at expandingrealitypodcast.com. That link is also located in the show notes, along with our affiliates and Amanda, so you can check that out easily. That is where we replay lives. We have the Too Cool for YouTube stuff. Merchandise is over there. All the socials. It's a badass one-stop shop for everything. So it's just awesome. Make sure that you'll check that out. Also, absolutely want to mention Opus, so the organization for paranormal understanding and support. If you guys feel that you need something like that and you don't feel like you have anyone to talk to, Opus has got you covered. Check the link down there as well. So go out into this beautifully mysterious place, whatever the hell this thing is, guys, and y'all just pick up a piece of litter. Go ahead and just be nice to everybody that you come across. Smile, open doors, buy somebody a coffee or a meal or something like that around the line behind you. It's super small stuff that makes the most massive ripple effects in the collective for the better. Take yourself up on that opportunity every single time it presents itself in your life, because it's you giving you that anyway, so you might as well take yourself up on it. So, also, while you're out there just crushing it in general energetically, go ahead and get the fuck out of the left-hand lane if you got somebody behind you wanting to pass. That is a huge pain in the ass if you just kind of park over there. Just move, and then they'll be by you, and then you can get back over there and do whatever the hell you want. Just move out of the left-hand lane. Thank you. So also go out into this beautifully mysterious place, guys, whatever the fuck it is. And you know what I'm going to say? Say it every time. It's the most important thing to take away from all of this. Y'all just be good to one another. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.